You know what's really stupid here when you talk about the delay is this. Number one, Ann Taylor will still be blamed for this delay. And number two, the morons who are supposedly in this for justice and supposedly wanting justice for the Idaho 4 are the ones leaking this information. Which makes absolutely no freaking sense. Ann Taylor didn't leak any of this to the best of my knowledge, and if she did, she would absolutely be one of the dumbest attorneys I ever heard of. Because there was nothing within this leaked information that is good for the defense. And the spoiler alert here is, as much as I don't want to admit it and I don't want to see it, I do believe this particular delay is valid. But I also think Judge Hippler won't grant it, and we'll get to the reasons why in a second. But this is an interesting interview, and this is something certainly worth talking about. So all that being said, everything's alleged. Welcome to the point. Let's get to it.
So the plan has been for Bryan Kohberger's quadruple trial in Idaho to start in 82 days, about 82 days from now, August 11th. In case you want to circle the date on your calendar, my plan is to go to Idaho. Families have been planning for it. Everybody's been getting ready for that day. But all of a sudden, people want to leak information to the media. And the media wants to take that information that was leaked to them, put their spin on it, and push it out to you. Ann Taylor specifically said that a lot of the information leaked will not make its way into trial because it isn't reliable, and because it isn't accurate, and because it isn't based in fact. And not only was this Dateline special so grossly incorrect, there's a book coming out as well. And that book also claims to cite local sources, local law enforcement. And how idiotic must you be to leak information to the media if you are a law enforcement officer and you have information about this case? In a lot of ways, I think this is some sort of odd Scream, Dewey, and Gale situation going on, where these networks send people down, they butter up these little Barney Fifes, and squeeze as much information out of them as possible with false promises. Or maybe the leaker is a little bit higher up in the chain and they're going to that individual and they're saying, hey, you give us information, we can give you a TV spot. We can make you an official contributor and give you a little bit of money every year. I mean, these mainstream media sources are nothing more than glorified chicken hawks. They'll find the weakest link, they'll break that weakest link, and they'll get what they want to push the story they want to push. The defense says that that is a problem. Team Kohberger now wants the trial delayed because of that Dateline NBC episode filled with all the details that had not officially been
alleged
released.
details.
The judge himself has said that there
were laid out incorrectly.
He's threatened to name a special prosecutor to find out who violated a gag order. That's a big deal. I was in court last week when he said it, and I was like, wait, what did he say? That is very unusual. He wants to go after the leaker with a special prosecutor right before the trial and do this whole investigation possibly. How will putting off the trial undo the damage that may or may not have been done from leaking evidence?
Ann Taylor cites in her motion that how this will undo the damage is time. She cites specific references that prove when something like this happens in a major trial, and additional time is put in place, the effects of the false narratives, false information, or misinformation is less powerful in terms of seating a jury. Once again, I know most people are going to blame the defense for this motion. They're going to say the defense is doing everything they can to delay this trial because time is on their side. And to a degree, yes, that's right. But of all the motions to continue that Ann Taylor filed, this one has the most validity. I 100% believe she's correct. I hate to say it because I want the information as much as y'all, but if we're going to do this, we got to do this right. It's insanely hypocritical for any law enforcement officer to leak information and still claim that they're on the side of justice.
Is the defense looking for any excuse not to face a jury? The answer to that's probably yes, because they've been trying everything. But will this actually work? I want to welcome back to the program Edwina Elcox, criminal defense attorney in Boise, Idaho. We appreciate you being with us, Edwina. We're happy to have you because you are actually in Idaho. You know the players. You know the way the local system works. You know the reputation and you know the judge. So you can really help us here. Do you think the trial is going to get delayed? I mean, you probably read this 40-page motion that just came out a little while ago.
I did read it, and I think, that's a hard question to answer, but I think if there is any reason that this trial gets delayed, and I do not think that Judge Hippler will make this decision lightly, but if there is any reason that this trial gets delayed, this is it.
I 100% agree with what she said. Of all the reasons ever listed to delay this trial, this one has the most weight. I understand there's a ton of evidence and non-evidence, according to Judge, that the defense has to go through, and the defense is citing that as one of the reasons they need to delay this case. My thoughts on that was there'll never be enough time to go through all the evidence. And it's just one of those situations where it's not right. It would be nice if they could do something about that, but it just is what it is. 53 terabytes of evidence and non-evidence, if I recall correctly, would take years to go through and go through properly. And it just doesn't seem like the state is willing to wait that long to get this trial done. I almost to a degree think they want to get this trial done regardless of the outcome, and if he is found convicted, wait for the appeal. But I don't believe Judge Hippler will delay this trial. I believe what he's going to say is, of the information leaked, none of it was that bad for the defense, and we can proceed as long as we can find a fair and unbiased jury. But that circles back to the problem Taylor put in her motion. It doesn't matter if what was filed was bad or negative, or had no impact at all. The fact is, it was put together as if it had an impact. It was pieced and produced to fit a narrative. And that narrative is incorrect, and that incorrect narrative can cause bias. And the remedy for that bias is once again time.
This is what I don't understand, Edwina, and come to us from the criminal defense side of this. If they pick a jury that does not know the case very well, and they try to wean them out and figure out who are the people here that just know the basics and can be unbiased, and they seat that jury, why does it matter what was leaked? Why does it matter what was on Dateline?
Well, that's a preemptive question, right? That's assuming that they can get a jury that doesn't know this case, that didn't see the Dateline episode, didn't hear about the Dateline episode. And so I think what the defense is trying to do is say, look, we need some space and time at the very least to get beyond the Dateline episode, this James Patterson book that is apparently going to come out. And I think more importantly, and I think Judge Hippler's order absolutely comports with this theory, is to figure out who and what leaked this information, because it would be totally improper for law enforcement or an agent of the prosecution to do this in a criminal trial absent of a non-dissemination or a gag order. But the fact of the matter is this happened in flagrant violation of that court's order. Flagrant violation.
100%.
And the way you say flagrant violation, when I was in court, it seemed to me like Judge Hippler was personally offended and very, very upset personally about this gag order being violated. I mean, what do you know about the judge? It seems like he really wants to go after who did this. Like, he seemed determined.
And legitimately he should, because that's his job. The judge is supposed to be the individual who just calls the balls and strikes, calls it down the middle, and makes the right decision based off the law of their state. But for the longest time, a lot of us have said, who is leaking this information? This seems like a violation of the gag order. If we're going to have a gag order, let's enforce it. I mean, if we're not, we're not. I, for one, am not a fan of any gag order just because I want to know and I want to hear both sides of the story. But a lot like one of y'all said in a previous video, the gag order failed. A gag order doesn't mean one side gets to have a narrative leak out to the media. And that's kind of what's been going on here. One side of this particular argument is leaking things to the media. One side of this particular argument is getting information out to you, and the media's done nothing but spin it. There's holes and issues. The unidentified male DNA, the lack of DNA found inside the home, the video surveillance footage, the trace amount of DNA found on the sheath, and the FBI destroying all their work. These are all issues. These are all problems. There's no connection between Bryan and the victims. I understand there doesn't have to be one, but the lack of a connection should be concerning. There doesn't appear to be a motive or a reason why as of now, and we have way more questions than answers. As I've said in the past, there is reason to believe there's a possibility Bryan committed this crime based off the allegations, but there's equally a reason to believe he wasn't involved, or that he wasn't involved in the way the state is trying to say he was involved. And I hope they find out who leaked this, and I hope they make an example of him.
As he should be. Judge Hippler, practicing in front of him, he is a taskmaster. He is as we expect judges to be, but extremely well versed in the law. He expects both sides to comply with court orders, deadlines, to respect the decorum of the court. And the fact of the matter is, whoever did this, or if it's one person, multiple people, shame on them.
Absolutely.
Because the fact of the matter is if this does result in the trial getting delayed, or ultimately what I think may be a legitimate defense request is whatever was leaked, that there is a request to the court that evidence be excluded. I mean, shame on whoever did this, because at the end of the day, who is suffering here? It's the families of those victims, right? Because they're left in limbo, potentially left in limbo again. And it's just simply not fair to them.
I want to add something there. It's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to the victims and the victims' families, and it's not fair to Bryan and Bryan's family. Whoever leaked this stuff, or has been leaking this stuff for the longest time, is basically a piece of garbage in my own unprofessional opinion. Once again, how are you going to say you're on the side of justice when you're hindering the wheels of justice? Justice is only found through a fair and just process. There's transparency and there's facts. And the judge's orders have to be upheld. Now, for the longest time, I've said I've agreed with Judge Hippler. I thought he was being fair. I thought he was rolling within the law. And I'll go on and say that if there's not a delay because of all this, and he says there shouldn't be a delay, I'll start to side towards the side of bias. Because I feel like the fair and right decision here is to delay this trial, and as much as I don't want to see it delayed. But what I want doesn't matter. Doing this once, doing it right, is the only way we're going to be able to move forward when this thing is all said and done.
And the court put this order originally, Judge, obviously we know that the case was transferred to Ada County and then subsequently assigned to Judge Hippler. But all of these were protective measures put in place to preserve the integrity of the prosecution and the criminal process in this matter to avoid exactly what happened here. And so absolutely, Judge Hippler and everybody else should be outraged
100%
as well. It's awful.
I'm with you when you say these poor families, because they have to take time off work and they have to emotionally prepare, and they have been counting down the days to this date and made arrangements in their own lives and made hotel reservations and Airbnbs. And
what if it was the family who was leaking this information? I just gotta say that. Wouldn't that be absolutely insane? I don't know that to be true. I'm not saying that's true. But how ironic would the situation be if the families are on one hand saying they're ready to get this thing to trial, when will it go to trial, we're tired of the delays, but them leaking information to the mainstream media is the reason for another delay.
Them to be messed with on that emotional level. Absolutely. I just think it's terrible. But I just don't understand, again, like, you know, leaks happen. Most cases don't even have a gag order like this, big cases, and all this stuff gets out in the media anyway. Look at Diddy. Look at everything we knew about the Diddy investigation. They picked a jury just fine, did Weena. It just seems like, isn't the defense just looking for anything to slow this down?
Well, I think that the case law supports their position, and that 40-page brief lays out the case law, right? And I think that it is, you know, absolutely the defense wants a continuance in here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But the reality is like their brief says, is different. And you not only have to think about the trial, but also the appellate record and everything that comes after that. And protecting that record, and the prosecution absolutely has an interest in that. And so if these things aren't protected, you're going to deal with this at the appellate record. And do you want this to be sent back and the families have to deal with this all over again? No, absolutely not.
It'll be interesting to see what happens now. I'm sure prosecution will file a response, and then we'll hear what the judge has to say about it. Edwina L. Cox, appreciate you very much for coming on with us tonight. It's always nice to see you.
Thank you.
And honestly, I don't think Bryan liked that answer, and I don't think they appreciate her saying that on national TV. Of course, leaks happen all the time. We find out information, people spill stuff to the media. But two wrongs don't make a right here, and to compare some other trial to this one is like comparing apples and oranges. The reality is, every single criminal trial is different. Every single criminal trial has its own unique elements and its own unique story, and it should be applied to within the law in its own unique way. Like it or not like it, there was a gag order put in place. And just because other areas leak information and there's a gag doesn't mean it won't affect this. I mean, of course Diddy was able to see the trial. He was in New York. The jury pool is significantly larger than probably most other cities in this country. So to say they were able to see the jury in that situation, so they should be able to see the jury in this situation, and there's no reason to have a delay is utterly ridiculous. There's a significant chance that this thing will get overturned on an appeal if Bryan is found guilty based off all this stuff going on right now. Whether we want it or not is irrelevant. The fact remains there should be a delay because people aren't keeping their mouth shut. We need to figure out who's saying what to who and hold those individuals accountable to the degree they can. There's only one way to get justice in this situation, and in a lot of ways I feel like the only people who are actually wanting justice for those four individuals are the people who are constantly questioning things in the mainstream media and in the court documents. But that's my take and that's my thoughts. I'm more curious to hear yours down in the comments below. And if you enjoy this and a more fair, open conversation, maybe check one of these videos out. Y'all be safe now.